Good morning, everyone. Well, actually, good afternoon and good evening to some of you. I'm Jonathan Barsaid. I'm the president of the America-Israel Friendship League. Thank you very much for joining us here today. This online webinar promises to bring to you a new side of Israel and of the COVID-19 crisis. Over the course of the last probably just over 10 weeks, we have all caught up in our microbiology studies and have become experts in the differences between viruses and bacteria, and between vaccinations and immunizations, and what are the factors of contagion. But COVID-19 has also brought us some of the good in us. It created a sense of empathy and community. It stirred up our innovative thought, not only technical innovation, but also social. COVID-19 is unique that it amplified that we are all social beings, and the fear factor was enhanced because of the enforced sense of isolation. Non-medical innovators jumped into the breach. They could not work on the next vaccination or on intubation enhancer, but instead they innovated to help reach out to the most vulnerable and work to reduce the sense of loneliness. We'll hear today from 4 innovators that have used technology for this purpose. Before we start, just a few housekeeping items. This session is being streamed live simultaneously both on Zoom and on Facebook Live, and we will also be recording the session so that you will have access for additional viewing later on, as well as also sharing with other people. If you do have any questions, please use the chat window within the webinar panel, and if you can also just use that chat to let us know where you're dialing in from. Time permitting, we'll get to the questions and other items. Before I start, I would like to introduce Eyal Biran. Eyal Eyal basically, before COVID-19 found him traveling and leading the efforts of Israel Is. This is an organization that's focus was to change the image of Israel in the world through the efforts of Israelis who travel the globe after their army service. As many of you know, that's probably about 90% of Israelis. As COVID came upon us, Eyal realized that those traveling ambassadors will not be available to continue in this task. So he returned to Israel to, as we say in the world of startups, pivot his organization and create a platform that introduced to the world some wonderful Israeli startups that are helping people address issues originating from the COVID-19 crisis. Eyal, why don't you tell us a bit more about Israel Is and your project.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. We are glad to speak here today and share our solutions with the American Israel Friendship League. We appreciate it, and thank you for having all the crowd that joined us today. I want to thank it all, first of all, for the entrepreneurs that's coming out of Israel. We have great solutions here today. And I will just start and say that we asked ourselves a very important questions a few months ago. How could be still be relevant at the days that the tourism, and I guess it's relevant for a lot of businesses, that people who listen here today, had the same problem. And we find that by sharing knowledge and by sharing solutions, we can create the world to be stronger, and we can beat the COVID-19. And this is our main mission, and I will share in the end, for all the people that listen, how they can be part of the platform, and how they can be part by sharing their struggles and their solutions. Because we understand that this is a community, and a community is the only way of winning this challenge. And I will finish, and I will be happy just to listen for our great entrepreneurs. But I would like to thank for the people who listen, and thank you for the opportunity again.
Thanks, Eyal. I'd like to quickly introduce the entrepreneurs that are joining us today. Starting with Noga Pfefferman. She's an experienced social entrepreneur. After graduating from college, she served as director of special programs at the Israeli consulate in New York. And upon her recent return to Israel, she co-founded Young Politicians, a political training program for female students. Today, with COVID-19, she's the program director of Door to Door. Also with us are Yoav Yitzhak Prato, who comes from a background of an entrepreneurship, having started several technology startups such as Kenshu, which is a global data intelligence and online advertising platform. Recently, Yoav co-initiated Through Generations, an organization that assists senior citizens in retirement homes and assisted care living to stay in touch with their families through easy and accessible systems. Together with him is Ari Ha'el, who's also a tech entrepreneur and executive at companies such as Cloudinary and Signals Analytics, as well as a meditation practitioner and instructor. Ronnie Flammer, CEO of All Movement, created One Heart, an organization that dedicates itself to mobilizing volunteers during times of emergency. This organization mobilizes over 26,000 civilian volunteers at every level of society. And then finally, Lahav Deri, who comes from New York-based real estate development background, turned to Israel to start Staying Together, which is similar in concept to what Yoav is doing with Light from Generation, but Lahav's Staying Together brings together patients quarantined in hospitals together with their families around the country. I'll let these innovators introduce their business. Let's start with Yoav and Ari from Light Through Generation.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jonathan. It's nice to be here virtually. As stated, my name is Yoav. I'm currently based in Israel, where I grew, and thereafter I was positioned in the US in the Silicon Valley for a couple of years. It's not the first startup that I'm having the pleasure of founding, but this is the most exciting one, I say. Light Through Generations was all about being frustrated. We were honestly frustrated with the fact that social distancing and isolation imposed loneliness on those that we should be respecting the most, our parents and grandparents. So after asking around a few questions, how is the different governments are going to be dealing with it, and didn't get any answer, at least not one that satisfied us. We just decided to do something about it, and thus the Light Through Generation initiative came about, which later we'll describe in greater details. Ari?
So looking back to 3 months ago, it was a confusing time. It seems like an eon ago, but it really wasn't clear what should be done with regards to the elderly in the nursing homes. And so we were spread out throughout the country, our core team. And once we came to the understanding that what we could provide was a solution that would enable communication between the elderly in nursing homes that were completely sequestered from their families and their relatives, we set out to put a solution together. And within a matter of days, we had a prototype working. And what was really exciting was that immediately after that, there was a giant inflow of volunteers, ultimately maxing out at around 200. So this was startup mode at light speed.
At this point, Ari, were you going to?
Yeah,
Ari or Yoav,
yeah, Jonathan. Let me say just a word, and we'll just continue. Yeah. And yeah, good technology is one that makes life simple rather than complicated. But at the end of the day, our honest and somewhat naive belief is that the most the most precious ore one can possess is actually our core values. It's not something you dig from the ground. It's not something you buy. And thus, having a more compass for society is what guided us. So what we have decided to do is not only focus on the elders and into nursing homes and the facilities, but also make sure that what we're actually using is refurbished materials. So sketching by hand, we designed an autonomous system that is supposed to be fully remotely operated, and thus, within facility, no one needs to do anything or understand technology, but all one needs to do is actually have the tenant in front of a large screen, as you can see behind me and on the slides here. But this is a chair, any regular chair, on top of which there is a laptop, on top of which there is a large TV or a monitor. And thus the experience once experience is actually of a meeting. It is a large visual and boosted speakers, and that, you know, the tenants and their families stay in touch. This was assembled, as Ari suggested, this was assembled across the country, different companies and individuals, all kinds of inventions that needed to take part. And as I said, everything is used materials, nothing of which was designed specifically for that purpose, yet it found its purpose, as we say, its true purpose. Ari?
I think once we had the elements in place, the real challenge was starting to scale up, and we moved from gathering one piece of gear, a chair, a laptop, and a monitor, to gathering together more significant contributions. And it's really heartwarming to say that many companies here in Israel found their way to contribute to our efforts. Ultimately, we have close to 80 systems in place today around the country in every type of city, village, kibbutzes, in the ultra-Orthodox society, within the Arab villages as well. So we've really made an effort to diversify and see that everyone had access.
Okay, thank you. Next is Lav with Staying Together.
Hey guys, how are you doing? Thank you for having me. We want to start by showing some pictures, or you just wanted me to go through the project? Oh, great, we can see some pictures. So I must say that our project was very similar in concept with what Yoav and Ari did, only we decided to focus on hospitals, mostly, not mostly, only solely on those departments that are quarantined. And that created a different challenge. The challenge was that we needed to create kind of like a solution that patients could enjoy a more quality technology. I mean, bigger screens and floating with the conversation and everything and the video. But we needed something more compacted, something that can stay in those beds, and that's what we did basically. So I don't know if you can see some pictures. So as you can see in the pictures, the solution is very simple. It's a tablet with a SIM that allows internet reception. What you can see now is a department, a quarantine department. As you can see, one of the people that started this initiative is fully geared with equipment, and this is what the nurses are dealing with every time they're entering this department. It means that they need to spend around 2 hours with this gearing up with this equipment, and then they can probably stay around 2 to 4 hours inside those departments. And it's not easy to hold phones for patients or to try to connect them. So we try to also give a solution of technology headquartered that can basically connect the families from home to those patients from far. It's not very complicated, but it's something that needs to be done in order to allow those patients some kind of communication.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lav. And Ari from One Heart.
Hi, my name is Ronnie. One Heart is actually, we were working together with Eyal and with Lav, and with many other partners around Israel. The name One Heart, it's what we were trying to do, and to see how we unite by actions, by volunteering, the different societies in Israel. So we were not only giving more than 100,000 solutions or completing more than 100,000 missions during the Corona, but what we did is to work in more than 80 cities in Israel. And we created a model that is based on taking neighborhoods and creating a community. And if you see here, this is a situation room, and we opened the situation rooms in the different communities all over the country. And because it was from the community, so we were able to understand the needs and to listen carefully to the different populations in the field. And by that, we were able to receive many calls that usually the national situation rooms are not getting them. And we were approaching leaders in the communities, and when we didn't find the leaders or the natural leaders, so we kind of created a very fast training for people to take responsibility, and they became the leaders of their neighborhood and their community. And we were working very closely with the government for projects. For example, as you can see here, this was the Holocaust Day. And so we didn't just supply the needs, but we were also, as I said, we were listening and taking projects to make sure that the moral in Israel is getting better, and everybody in the country will be touched. All in all, we had almost 30,000 volunteers. What you see here is the Memorial Day. And again, together with Eyal and other friends, we called up more than 24,000 volunteers that were standing for the 24,000 soldiers who died for Israel and sacrificed their life. So even the Corona didn't stop us from going out from our homes and standing in front of the apartments and homes of the families and in the memorial locations all over the country. What we found out is that our situation room always said yes for every need, for every person. And once we call it need, lead, and seed. You understand the need, you find the leader, you create the lead, and then you plant the seed. And by that, we completed all these missions. And One Heart, it's not my organization. I'm working for the Or movement. We are dealing with the Negev and the Galilee, but I called up, and it's a huge privilege, and we really felt as One Heart, as a united nation. It was a great experience.
Thank you, Ronnie. And finally, Noga with Happy Hour.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. This is a really fascinating webinar and really important, I think, also in the time that we're in, to take the time and learn also from each other. So I'm glad to be here. So I'm now a program director at Dor Ledor, which is a nonprofit organization that was started back in 2008. And the vision was to reconnect communities of young people and old people back together in Israel. We have different programs that are dealing with this issue, that are multi-generational programs. And one of them is Happy Hour, which is the idea behind it was to create a connection between people that is based not on someone who is volunteering and someone who needs a volunteer, rather to change kind of the vision we have and the idea that we have about volunteering with older people, and to connect them through their mutual hobbies or interests that they have. And we have a short piece, if Jonathan can, I hope this would work now, that will tell you just a glimpse into the activity that we had here, and then afterwards I'll tell you a bit about the adjustments that we did and where the project went now during this crisis.
איצ'י כבר הרבה שנים לא משחק, גם קריירת הציור שלו מאחוריו, היום הוא בן 85, גר לבד בדירה בתל אביב עם נוף לים, וכבר 15 שנים כותב למגירה. עכשיו, בזכות המיזם Happy Hour, שעה שמחה, הוא הכיר את שגיא שדור, משורר צעיר שעוזר לו להעביר את השירים מהמחברות למחשב ומשם לפייסבוק.
מה הכותרת?
רצון האדם לחיות בתוך קסם. יש הבדל בינינו רגע, אני אעשה חשבון. וואו, יותר מ-60 שנה.
זה התחיל מפגישות של פעם בשבוע לשעה בערך.
כן, אפילו יותר.
עכשיו זה כבר טיפה יותר. שבוע שעבר הלכנו להצגה בהבימה ביחד. זה
גם עוזר לי לבדידות שלי, וזה הוא מביא לי שמחה, יש לו המון הומור, ואנחנו צוחקים. זה נותן צבע לחיים, זה משהו מאוד מאוד ערכי.
שגיא ומוטי נרגשים הפעם במיוחד, כי בקרוב הם יופיעו יחד בערב שירה ששגיא ארגן, שבו השתתפו זה לצד זה משוררים צעירים ומבוגרים.
אתה סגור על מה שאתה רוצה להופיע איתו מחר, נכון?
כן, 3 שירים, ואני יודע בדיוק.
מתרגש להקריא מול קהל, או שזה לא מזיז אותך?
אני הרבה זמן לא הופעתי לפני קהל, אני לא יודע.
מי שיזמה את שעה שמחה במסגרת ארגון דור לדור היא רוני פייבלוביץ', פעילה חברתית שרצתה להנציח את סבא שלה, סבא פסח, שלימד אותה רמי וברידג' רק כדי שיוכלו לשחק יחד, ובגיל 101 נפטר.
המטרה של הפרויקט היא לא התנדבות בין צעירים למבוגרים. הסיפור שם זה לגמרי חברות. אגב, גם המסר שאנחנו מוציאים ברשתות החברתיות, שם אנחנו פונים לחבר'ה הצעירים להצטרף, ואם אתה רוצה להקדיש שעה בשבוע לתחביב, תגיד לנו מה התחביב שלך, ואנחנו נחבר לך מישהו מבוגר שרוצה לעסוק באותו תחביב. מתוך הרצון שלנו להעביר לאנשים, דבר שם אתה משקיע בעצמך. אתה שם שעה בשבוע בשביל ה-well-being שלך, שזה דבר שבדור שלנו אין כמעט זמן לעשות אותו.
Okay, so that was just a short piece to give you the idea of what's behind the project. Once we hit the crisis, we understood that something needs to be done. Our main focus generally in Dor Ledor is the population of senior citizens that are at home, which is more than 90% of them here in Israel. Because for them, being isolated is really made it much more worse for them, because some of them already had some connections and friendships, and this was all kind of cut off. So we joined forces with Facebook Israel, and we started, instead of happy hour, we did happy talk, and we brought in their employees that were at home, working from home, and asked them if they have any special hobbies or languages or things that they would want to talk about and engage in. And we brought them to be kind of phone buddies with senior citizens that has kind of the same interest. And they were also a friend in need in this time during like the last 2.5 months. And also some connection to kind of some of the technologies that were used nowadays, such as WhatsApp video chat, that they help us kind of bringing senior citizens into those talks, and I think made it easier for them to connect. So this is what we've been doing ever since. We have more and more companies that joined us since we started, and we see the connections that are really becoming more and more meaningful for both sides. The employees, the volunteers, the young people, and also obviously for the senior citizens.
Thanks. Thank you, Noga. Before we actually go into the questions, we are going to give Yov's movie one more try. We have it in a different format, so hopefully it will work this time.
שלום לכם ידידיי שבחוץ. אנחנו סגורים, מבודדים בחדרים בעקבות החשיפה לקורונה שפרצה אצלנו בדיור המוגן וכבר הפילה קורבנות.
אני חייבת לציין שהמשפחתון עשה נפלאות.
מערכת נגישה ונוחה, באמת משהו, חשבו על כל פרט. הייתה לי כאן דיירת שפעם ראשונה יכלה לדבר עם שני הילדים שלה, שיש לה ילד אחד, בן אחד בקנדה, אחד בארצות הברית, היא נמצאת בארץ, היא מעולם לא דיברה איתם ביחד, כבר כמה שנים. פתאום היא אומרת, עשינו פגישה משפחתית. זו חוויה של פגישה, כל מי שהשתמש בזה, אמר לי, תקשיב, אני גם ראיתי את הדיירים, אנחנו מרגישים שאנחנו יושבים אחד ליד השני.
פה יש לי עם מי לדבר.
אני מודה לך מאוד מאוד על כל השמחה שעשית לי בכדי שאני אסתכל על המשפחה שלי.
התרומה היא תרומה נעלה. אנחנו בזכות זה יכולים ליצור קשר עם הצוות, קשרים שהם כמו הבא.
And that's why entrepreneurs never give up. We got it to work. So I would like actually to start off with a question directed at each one of you, and is and I think you already touched upon it, but if maybe like in just sort of succinct way, I think actually, well, is what made you come up with the initiative? How did it evolve? And Noga.
So as I said, and you saw so in the story, Ronnie had wanted to create a project to remember her grandfather. And the main idea behind it was to really kind of change the people's perception of senior citizens, that they have so much to give. And I think working out with corporates and places that really also want to create a better experience for their employees made us realize and kind of do this connection with Facebook and other companies ever since. That we understood that for them, also being at home, not meeting people, not working with their colleagues, for them could be a great opportunity to meet someone new. Many of them told us that this was kind of their part of the day that they were waiting for that few minutes of a call, maybe sometimes they did something together, because for them it was also like a point of the day that they can relax and not work and not worry. And actually they got a lot from the senior citizens as well, telling them that, they've been through crisis bigger than this, and we'll make this work and survive. So I think kind of these voices that we were hearing from companies telling us that they want to volunteer and they want to help made us understand that there's a good connection here.
Thanks. And Yoav and Ari, I guess, said together.
I'll take this one, Ari. So, at least from experience, any good initiative is one that actually starts from a pain or an unsolved need. And we've been seeing that, and it started to grow and blow, and there wasn't, on the horizon, there wasn't any issue being brought about. So the next step is actually to make a decision. Are you going to complain, or are you going to look the other way, or are you going to do something about it? And our mindset, Ari and I, are similar, and a group of others, by the way, with us, we said, let's do something about it. So once you set the base, you need to set the horizon. Like, okay, so what is it that you're going to be doing about it? And once we define that we actually want families to stay together. We want to see folks, we want to see tears of joy rather than tears of sadness. It was all about figuring out the steps. Which are those steps that each of them is reachable, but it's not too easy so that you can make progress. What was different about this initiative is that literally all generations and across the country, people came together virtually. It wasn't about a team in a dungeon sitting and coming up with the next algorithm. It was actually a point on the horizon that everybody felt emotionally connected to and started asking, okay, so what can I do about it? And each of which took a piece, assembled together. This is what came up.
Thanks. What about you, Ronnie?
Well, actually, I just had a meeting with Erez Eshel, and he told me, you know something, we have our own organizations, but we should do something bigger than what we do usually. And it was just in the middle of the day in Tel Aviv, and there was nobody in the streets, and we went out from a meeting with the government. That was a crazy meeting. And I said, what do you want from me? We have so much work to do in our organizations, etc. And he said, but you know, this organization, One Heart. I said, okay, One Heart, how can you resist such a name and such a call? And I said, what is the goal? What is the challenge? And he said, you know, we are struggling with volunteers, and we want to be all over Israel, and maybe we can use some of the methodologies you are using in your movement. So I said, okay, if you say that there are no rules and we can do whatever and to use any crazy idea, so let's do it. And the rest is history, and from 1,000 volunteers to 29,000, things like that. That's how we started.
That's great. And finally, Love.
Yeah, so I think it came from my own personal experience and the people in the group that initiated this whole project. A girl named Noam Artzvi, which really started to think together about our loneliness. And when I was quarantined in my house, I found myself doing something I never did. Calling maybe 20, 30 times a day to people on FaceTime because I wanted some human connection. And then it makes you think, you know, when you shared all this feeling and experience, you realize that a lot of the people, the young people, feel very lonely and stressed. And then you think, well, what do the elderly doing? What are the older citizens are doing? What are the people that are quarantined in those hospitals doing? Because we don't have any technological barriers, the young generation, and it's very hard to put yourself inside the mindset of older person and realize that I don't know what about your grandma, but my grandma, every time we tried to speak on FaceTime, she put the video in her ear. It's a very I'm sure it happened to many of you. So you realize there's really a barrier that seems very, very simple to us, but it's not. It's not simple for many people. And when you go to those places of like where Yoav and Ari went and those hospitals and those places that really, they have another issue, which is really, you're not allowed to come in contact with those people. You just realize that it's as bad as as having the disease is not being able to communicate. And I think hospitals are realizing or understanding it more and more now.
So, so Ari, a question really. I mean, we heard now Love talk a lot about loneliness, but really, I would probably argue that, I mean, loneliness has been an issue that has really been growing over the last few years. I mean, there's been a lot of awareness to it. It's not just a result of this COVID-19. I mean, just a few years ago, we know that a minister in the United Kingdom, there was a minister was appointed in the United Kingdom to basically combat loneliness. Why do you think that this crisis is so different?
So I think mainly two factors came together. One was the actual physical separation, and Lav touched on that a bit, but the physical separation between the elderly and not just their families, but their caretakers. Everyone was perceivably a threat for contracting the disease. This was one major factor that contributed to the loneliness, in the sense that, okay, who is safe? Who can I be in contact with? And the second was that for a short period of time during lockdown, until things started to come together, it really wasn't clear what solution could be provided. And that sense of where is this headed? What are we going to do? That really came to play as in terms of the fear factor for many people, which contributed to the loneliness.
Okay, interesting.
If I can tap into that, Jonathan.
Sure.
We're dealing with loneliness with senior citizens over the years, and I think it's becoming an issue people are more aware of. And I think what happened during COVID-19 is that people actually understood that we always say that the people we're talking to and kind of engaging with, their loneliness was there before and could continue later on. So in a way, this helped us kind of bring this topic to people's attention, and then people started really understanding and talking. We had a panel with a doctor who's a specialist for this issue, and he said that, and this is like groundbreaking, but and just to understand that loneliness has effects on people's health, equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So, and we see that increases over time and through the years. So for us, it actually, in a way, helped us bring this topic really kind of to the front.
So essentially what you're saying is that it's basically increased, it's basically increased awareness and made it more, brought it up to the forefront, more of a topic for conversation these days. So,
and I also think that it helped us understand that even a phone call, which is easier to do, and you don't have to drive all the way to meet someone in person, and you don't have to even spend an hour in that phone call. You can do it. We started with happy hour, but then we said, you know, during this crisis, for our employees, for the volunteers, we said, your call once a day, even or every 2 days, is something that they're looking for, and we saw that people, you know, understood that it's, once we have that in mind, it's easier to make people feel less lonely. It's not as hard as we thought. It shouldn't be such a illness in the world. That's what I think we understood.
So I guess we can only be optimistic that this will raise awareness. I mean, that it will continue also beyond the crisis.
That's what we were hoping for, yeah.
So really, I mean, if talking about optimism, that's always a segue in my world, basically, to the world of entrepreneurs and technology. Yoav, in the world of technology, it's all about ROI, return on investment. What's your measurement of success in your project?
Yeah, true. If one wants to get better, one needs to measure and optimize. So if you don't like work in an open-ended world, that's how life is, at least from a business standpoint. I have to say, from a social standpoint, it's kind of the same. The same kind of notion was applied here. So first and foremost, we were optimizing for smiles, to be honest. We just asked for feedback and pictures and videos, and those were fed internally and to the volunteers, so as to say, here is your feedback, here is your KPI. But then we understood if you want to create something big, you need to set a point of alignment between different groups of people. And there are different stakeholders in this case. It's not only the tenants, it's also the families, and it's the teams that are taking care of all of this. And only then there is the larger circle like government and what have you. But it was important to keep a balance and kind of see from a point of view of each and every one of the stakeholders what the KPI actually is. So for the families, we needed to create all these training sessions and invitations and kind of cross the barrier of actually calling and experiencing. And for the teams, we needed to code something special that is allowing them to actually experience less investment and less needing to be near the tenant. So for them, it was like, hey guys, we're going to take time off your schedule and we're going to increase the situation of your tenants. And for the tenants, it was very clear. What we then realized is that that was actually the beginning. A good KPI is one that actually moves. People think that, no, stay focused, stay, my board always says don't defocus, and I'm always saying as an entrepreneur, I will defocus. It means I have something great to share. You will try not to defocus me, but I will always try to come up with the next idea that will disrupt the universe. So in this initiative, actually, this family bonder, we call it, became a platform. And from connecting families, when the Holocaust day was upon us, we hosted thousands of family bonder initiated Holocaust testimonials, and then the Memorial Day, and then birthdays. So it became a platform for social activities, I guess, and it wasn't the initial idea.
The only part that I would ask, follow up on that one is for the non-tech people, KPI. You keep on referring to it, so just.
Oh yeah,
I want to just quickly define what that is.
Yeah, key performance indicator. It's the one point that you measure before and after, and you set goals. I want to improve by 20%, 30%. Sorry.
Thanks. Ronnie, in your world, really, I mean, the world of volunteers and mobilizing volunteers and a situation like this where I guess the whole mobilization of volunteers is different. I guess, a two-pronged question is really, how do you mobilize your volunteers differently during this crisis? But tying into the previous question, how do you also measure your success and impact?
So as I said, what we did is to be working on a very local base. So you can serve your neighbors easily, and we were always thinking about what is the next crisis, because I think that the COVID-19 showed all of us that the crises are, as the opportunities are always in front of us, and everything that we can imagine will happen one day. So if we can create the infrastructure based on the local forces, and we don't need to create complicated systems in terms of mobilizing, so we can use the neighbors, and we don't need any need for cars and complicated solutions. What we were measuring during the operation is how fast and how many people we supply the solutions. Every night around midnight, we had a report of all the calls that we got into our situation rooms, and how many of them we were able and to be successful by reaching the solutions. And it was most of the days more than 90%, thank God. And the second thing was how many volunteers we added every day. And if we just wanted to make sure that nobody will be left behind. And the third thing was how many partnerships. We believe in infrastructure, not just solving by ourselves all the needs. So we said that we need at least 30 organizations to partner with, and we had 64 organizations all in all that we were working together. And these were the cities also. So we said that we need to reach at least 25% of the cities of Israel, And we were lucky to have more than 30% of the cities that we touched. So we were measuring the perspective of the individual and the needs, and the global, the macro, the country covered as well.
Okay, interesting. Lav, this crisis is unique from the aspect also of accessibility. And a question that we got over here from the audience, and that ties into a question also that we want to ask in general, is what kind of obstacles did you face working with hospitals and, you know, all the health safety restrictions, the access issues, and how did you overcome those, and then how did you also overcome sort of like the fear factor of senior citizens in the situation with regard to their fear of technology?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It's a very important question, and I must say that initially we came to those hospitals, we came very naive, because we said, look, we have the solution. It's very simple. You can take a tablet and a flexible arm and just put it in front of the bed, and the nurse or the social worker in the hospital doesn't have to do anything. She can just put it there, or he can just put it there. And then the hospitals came and say, wait. You have to understand something. And it's true to Europe and the US and any other place in the world. Hospitals and the medicine industry is known for a lot of suits that are in place, and a lot of problems with the hospitals and what they can do and cannot do in respect to the privacy of the patients. So we really needed to go through the legal departments of each hospital and try to work some kind of an agreement that we needed to sign patients, and a lot of things that kind of, for us, from our perspective, was, look, we're trying to help. Why do we need all those barriers? But it was I think it took us some time to understand that what the hospitals are trying to do is to make this thing work, but also to respect those patients in those very inconvenient situations when they're lying in bed, and we needed to run like a schedule that will make sure that each patient is talking to his family and or her family, and so this was one challenge. The second challenge, I would say, was just one of my favorite reaction when I tell about this project to people is to hospitals, is that they say, oh, so basically, like I said, it's an arm, it's a tablet. And I said, yeah, it's exactly what it is, but that's what's needed. Sometimes you don't need a complicated solution. Sometimes you just need to put it there. Today, hospitals in the US, in Europe, in Israel, they all have the same standard of having a TV screen in each bed. And I think hospitals are realizing more that there has to be a new standard of also taking care of a really good solution to quality communication with patients that are quarantined. They don't have an option of visitors.
Okay. Another question over here from the audience is to Ronnie. Your motto of lead and seed suggests that some of your solutions for specific mobilization can be used for other problems. What are you learning, and how can you scale it?
So again, you can take every crisis and to say, let's have a very specific focused project. And you can say, okay, let's create something that can be a model and to scale it. So the model was not developed for the COVID-19. We had this model before. We call it a vital neighborhood, but we had it only in 4 cities in Israel. And as I said before, for example, in the goals of the cities, we reached 82 cities all over Israel. And then the government saw it, and other municipalities said, okay, guys, you have something unique that is working. And if it's something that can work in the emergency days, let's see how we can use it on a daily life basis. So what we are doing since then, it's to take the model and first we translated it, for example, to Arabic, and there are many cities in Israel, not only in the Jewish cities, but also in the Arabic cities, which is not only translating the language, but it's also translating, it's different behavior and attitudes and many things that you should fit. And actually, tomorrow morning, the Minister for Equal Social Equality we're going to have together a Zoom with more than 50 organizations that hopefully will adopt this model and many things like that. So we are working in parallel to our daily job now. It's to take all the models from the Corona days to see how we can provide it to the public, to the municipalities, to the new government of Israel.
We'll keep our fingers crossed. So, Yoav, what keeps you up at night? What concerns you?
Well, it's a big question, I guess. But honestly speaking, I'm worried about the moral compass of the world we live in, across nations, across politics, and what have you. I literally find myself thinking, not really when I'm sleeping, but rather when I'm working out or catching waves. What is it we're going to leave behind, and what is it that we are leading by example with, looking upon generation behind us, and the generations above us kind of set the tone and set course. And lately I've been feeling like we've been messing it up in our watch. So I'm sorry to be somewhat of a party pooper, but I think we have a lot of work to do, and less talking and tweeting and more doing the right thing is needed. And my talks to young entrepreneurs do not start from marketing, and start from executing, experience it yourself, and then speak the global language, the language of the heart. So I think we have a long way to go.
Well, it's interesting because all in all, each one of you, this initiative that you've engaged in now relies on volunteers. And I would actually have imagined that you would have actually had a sense of optimism and hope, given the fact that you guys are being so successful in mobilizing volunteers through these initiatives. And I guess really maybe a question to each one of you is that what have you come across? What is it that's incentivizing people to come out and help you in these projects? What is it that's, why do you think these volunteers are coming out? Noga?
So I think, like I've said and talked about it since we saw it worked in happy hour, is really to tell them, if you want to also take care of your well-being, if you have something you want to work on, which is really something that does not happen a lot, so come to us and we'll make sure you'll have that hour dedicated, like just to engage in your interest, and to get to know someone that he can live around you or in your city and you haven't got a chance to meet just because you have 50 years apart. And that made people committed, but also really feeling that it's something they enjoy and they want to do. Obviously, during COVID-19, we had our activity grew 6 times more. I'm talking also about, we have this kind of help center that people call throughout the year, and this obviously we were bombarded with people calling to get help, but also bombarded with people wanting to volunteer and wanting to help. And kind of tapping back to talking about measuring and trying to scale and the question of impact in social activity is a big question, but we're always trying to understand and get feedback from even people who come just to kind of one-time volunteering to help someone with something very small, to change a light bulb in their house. And we asked them, how was it for you? Did you get in touch? Did you exchange numbers? And we see that once they have like a connection that is not related to us, that it's something that they're holding, like they have their phone number and they can talk, so they'll be able to do it later on, and it becomes kind of like a part of a routine that is not under like a specific program or under a specific crisis. And that's what we're hoping for, that this would continue.
Hey, Ronnie, what about you?
So I believe that, you know, following what Yoav just said, and part of what we had in this period, we had like a board of smart people. Professor Dan Ariely was one of them. And I asked him in the first meeting, 10 years from today, 5 years from today, when we look back and we'll think, what is the one thing that we should not miss if we look back from this challenge? So I was expecting a very economical, wise answer. And he said, you know, we must not miss this opportunity for mutual responsibility. And I believe is more than right. And, you know, I'm coming from NGO. For us, it's maybe more common, this kind of thinking. But I believe that to volunteer should be like breathing. It should be part of our life. It's not something unique that you need this kind of challenge to face it and to be part of it. And the day it's ended, so we are all going back to our mouse race and waiting, I don't know, for somebody or something to happen and to do it again. And when we will understand that we really need each other, and that today we can be healthy and tomorrow we can be on the other side or any other situation. And as I said before, the way you breathe and the way you want to act normally, so part of our life must be the understanding, and more than that, it's the action of every day you should do at least one thing for somebody else, something good for one person on the planet. So I believe that you know, in the challenge, it was very easy and it was natural for people to do it as breathing. And this is our lifetime mission, to make sure that the whole humanity will think like that and feel like that and act like that.
Okay.
Quickly. Can I just add something? Sorry.
Yeah, but we're running out of time, so really quickly, if you can.
Right. Quickly, I think that what we learned is something, it's not the incentive, but what keeps people feeling good about what they're doing is to give them tools and to give them the knowledge. We told them it's not going to be easy trying to connect with someone over the phone or over a video call and to become friends. So we gave them a list of ideas to what to talk about and what to do if they hear that they're in some sort of an anxiety, or if they need anything, they have a number to call. So it's really giving also people the tools to make their experience good and make them feel that they're doing something that they're good at and they're enjoying it.
Great, thanks. Nav, I'll give you the last word.
I'll be really quick. I think in regard to your question with people volunteering and how to incentivize them, I think people want to do it. It's like the cliche that, you know, any form of altruism is actually egoism. And I think it's true in a way, because people want to feel like they're doing something, they want to feel good about themselves. And I think if you give them an option, if you show them the way sometime, we will find the people to do it, to have social responsibility. That's it.
Great, thank you. So, really, as we wrap up, actually, Eyal, do you want to say anything as we wrap up?
Yeah.
At the top of the hour.
So, Jonathan, I will be very quick. Thanks for all of you that's been listening, and especially for our great speakers, the entrepreneurs from Israel. I think it's incredible to listen for each one of you. I want to explain briefly how you can be part of this platform. Because we invite you, people from all over the world, especially from the US right now, to share with our platform your solutions and your struggle. And I will share my screen right now. I want to show you. We have hundreds of stories from all over the world. Here is a story from India about Tarun. He's an entrepreneur that working as a social entrepreneur, sharing and collecting food for people with needs. And we have hundreds of different stories of people that met for the first time and their solution of doing it. You will have in the end of the session, Jonathan will send you the link, but you will get the link for our website. And here you can send us also your initiative and your needs. And we want to create a connection between needs and solution from all over the world. This is the goal of this platform. And I think we had a very interesting call. And I was very connected for each one of you, what you said. And just for the end, I will say again, my main question and my main message. It's all about sharing experience and knowledge, and that's what we do here. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, and Eyal, I share with you also your sense. I mean, it's been inspiring to hear and to listen to all of you. And I come from the world of entrepreneurs, and
I would just want to finish in the end. I'm sorry that I didn't mention, but I have very important partners here for this platform. Eyal from the IDC in Israel and Reut Institute. I want to thank them for being part of it, and I'm sorry for interrupting you while you spoke.
It would not be an Israeli panel if there wasn't some kind of interruption in the middle. But the fact that we kept it to the end, it actually says a lot. But really, I just want to mention that really coming out, the COVID-19 has really been very unique. But there's one thing that as coming from the world of entrepreneurship, being the eternal optimist, what I've come out of it really is a strong sense of what's really has been sort of epitomized by this crisis. The bright side of it, if one wants to look at, on the half full size of the cup, is the sense of compassion, the sense of empathy, the reaching out and the support in general. And I think each one of you of these organizations is actually really been epitomizing it. So thank you so much. And to all of you out there, thank you again for joining us. We hope you'll join us again in our future webinars that will continue streaming throughout the summer. Thank you again. Stay safe and stay healthy. Goodbye.